Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. This public hearing conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication will now come to order. Notice the public hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets via electronic format on Wednesday, February the 15th, with a second notice provided on Monday, February the 20th. Notice of this hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website. There is only one item on today's agenda, and that is Bill 9-34, introduced by myself, which is an act to amend Section 1 of Section 6101 of Article 1 and 6302 of Article 3, and sections under Article 4 of Chapter 6, Title 1, Guam Code Annotated, relative to clarifying the definition of electronic cigarettes, raising the minimum age of legal access to tobacco products and electronic cigarettes to 21 years of age, and citing this as the Youth Protection Act of 2017. I think many of you have suffered me in the past doing an introduction to this, so I'll save all of us the pain. And just call the first panel. Terry Quabo, Kathy Rivera Castro, Peter Cruz, Dr. David. Okay. Why don't we just go in the order that I called it? You signed up, Terry. Go ahead first.
Good afternoon, Speaker Cruz and other members of the Committee on Appropriation and Adjudication. For those who don't know me, my name is Terry Quabo. I'm the founder and the executive director for Guam Cancer Care. And our nonprofit organization is one of the nonprofits that provide direct support services to hundreds of cancer patients on Guam, whether it be patient navigation, financial assistance, transportation, or even screening. Guam Cancer Care, is celebrating 6 years this year. And in the past 6 years, we've actually helped over 1,440 cancer patients get access to care. We've actually issued out $875,000 in financial assistance grants and brought in over $4.7 million in outside resources. But that's not what's important. The funny thing is, although we feel that we've made successes in the past 6 years, I've always felt that we're taking one step forward and two steps back, because it's very difficult for people to access care. You could say our organization is somewhat of an expert when it comes to dealing with patients. You may deal with your relatives that have cancer, but we deal with it on a daily basis. We see the trials and tribulations that patients go through, and we see the impacts that it has on our community. Today you'll hear from proponents for Bill 9. You'll hear the stats from Dr. David and the other members of the NCD Consortium. But you also hear opponents about this bill, and you're infringing on their rights to choose whether they can smoke or not. My testimony comes more, not from a statistical side, but more from a humanistic side, because we see what patients go through. So as Guam Cancer Care strives to help hundreds of cancer patients access much-needed care, it's really disheartening to know that our fellow residents of Guam actually take a reactive approach to their health. Over 90% of the clients we serve are coming to us at later stages of cancer, stage 3 and stage 4, where the costs are really high and their survivability is really low. As a community, we need to emphasize on lifestyle changes, to include but not limited to stopping smoking, eating healthy, exercise, and also cancer screening. Some opponents to this bill will say, why focus on infringing on your rights to smoke? Or why don't you focus on education? Guam Cancer Care, as a nonprofit, is focusing on education. And we are going into schools. Our Kids for the Cure program is actually hitting a lot of the elementary schools. At the high school level, we're doing our EFIT ECHO program, and we are going to be doing an aggressive tobacco program at the middle schools. But on the other part, when you talk about the question about does smoking really impact our community? Absolutely it does. of all the patients that we serve, a lot of them, people will say it doesn't impact our society, because if I smoke it, I choose to do it. It doesn't impact you, and how does it impact our community? It absolutely does. Just in 2016, Medicaid spent $89 million for medical care, and MIP spent $18 million. I'm not saying all of that is cancer related, but the point is, for people that are on Medicaid or MIP that are getting cancer screening, the community is paying 55 cents for every dollar for Medicaid and 100% of the cost for cancer care. So it does impact the community. So with the patients that we've seen, I've never had one patient say, "Thank you for allowing me to smoke since I'm 18." What I see when I see lung cancer patients coming through our office is a sense of regret and remorse that they didn't have that opportunity to make that decision. I mean, last year, this body, the 33rd Guam Legislature, signed our pledge, the Join the Fight Against Cancer pledge. If you guys know who was here who signed that pledge, this is the forefront of that fight against cancer. I wouldn't be here testifying if I didn't think it was important that we can make a difference. We really need to take a proactive approach, and I ask this panel to really support Bill 9, because it can really make a difference on the lives of many of our cancer patients on Guam. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you very much, Terry. You reminded me that I did not recognize my colleagues. The very far right, Senator James Espaldon. Next to him, Senator Tom Atta, Senator Talina Cruz Nelson, Senator Mary Camacho Torres, Senator Regine Bisco Lee, Senator Luis Borja Munoz, and Senator Therese Terlahi, and Senator Frank Uggan. All right, Kathy.
Buenas and half a day, Speaker Cruz and Senators of the 34th Guam Legislature. My name is Kathy Rivera Castro, and I'm a resident of the village of Mong Mong. I volunteer for several organizations, such as the American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, or ACS-CAN, the Tobacco Control Action Team of the Non-Communicable Disease Consortium, the Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition. But my most important role, however, is that I am a mother and a grandmother. For almost 2 years now, I, along with members of the Tobacco Control Coalition, have personally spoken with each member of the 33rd Guam Legislature and now members of the 34th Guam Legislature to dialogue with you about this legislation and the issues surrounding tobacco use in our community. In these meetings, we have presented you with evidence-based and science-based information, data, statistics, as well as personal anecdotal accounts as to how tobacco has affected the health of our people. The passage of this bill will forever change the access of tobacco products and classify all electronic cigarettes as well as electronic cigarette components and products as a tobacco product. Among the information that we have presented, I'd like to present some of the more compelling points. First, raising the minimum legal age for purchasing tobacco will reduce usage among those younger than 18. We are all very much aware that many underage users rely on social sources, such as friends, to get their tobacco products. This is due to the fact that there are 18-year-olds in our high schools, and thus underage users interact within the same social circle. Raising the minimum legal age to 21 will mean that those who can legally obtain tobacco are less likely to be in the same social networks as high school students. There are some anecdotal accounts of students in our middle schools and high schools that have been caught with multiple infractions of the tobacco policy. I don't believe these students wish to get into trouble repeatedly, but because they are addicted to the substance, their need for it supersedes the potential repercussions resulting from getting caught with these tobacco products. Beyond anecdotal accounts, the Institute of Health, in a brief published in March 2015, noted that, and I quote, The public health impact of raising the minimum legal age for tobacco products depends on the degree to which local and state governments change their policies. Overall, in the absence of transformative changes in the tobacco market, social norms and attitudes, or in the knowledge of patterns and cause of tobacco use, the committee is reasonably confident that raising the minimum legal age will reduce tobacco use initiation, particularly among adolescents aged 15 to 17, and improve the health of Americans across the lifespans and save lives, end quote. Number 2, the notion of the right to smoke is fundamentally flawed. In March 2008, the Tobacco Control Legal Consortium held a symposium entitled "There is No Constitutional Right to Smoke," 2008, and the key points that they had addressed are: there is no such thing as a constitutional right to smoke, since the U.S. Constitution does not extend special protection to smokers. Smoking is not a specifically protected liberty right under the due process clause of the Constitution, and the fundamental right to privacy does not apply to smoking. Smokers are not specifically protected category of people under the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. Since the Constitution does not extend special protection to smokers, smoke-free legislation need only be rationally related to legitimate government good. Because there is no specifically protected right to smoke, tobacco control advocates can work to amend or repeal state laws that stand in the way of tobacco control efforts. And their conclusion was that, and I quote, "The so-called right to smoke is actually a smokescreen. There is no constitutional right to smoke. Courts are quick to find that the smoke-free legislation is rationally related to a legitimate government goal, since they have long held that protecting the public health is one of the most essential functions of government." Number 3, there's a compelling public health need for raising the minimum legal age to legally purchase tobacco products. And I would like to present the following alarming local statistics. Among states and territories, Guam ranks number 1 in smoking, and the adult national average smoking rate is at 17.5%, with Guam being at 27.4%. The youth national average is at 10.8%, and Guam being at 17.6% for high schools and 10.5% for middle schools. And this data was received through the Burfus and the Youth Behavioral Risk Survey. We should not be proud of these ranks and status. Lung and bronchus disease ranks the second most diagnosed cancer in Guam, and lung and bronchus also ranks number 1 as far as being the most deadly cancers. 60% of our high school students in Guam have tried electronic cigarettes or vaping, and 30% are current users. 40% of our middle school students on Guam have tried electronic cigarettes or vaping, and 20% are current users. I also wish to submit the following 7 articles into record as part of my testimony. The first one, the Institute of Medicine report, Public Health Implications of Raising the Minimum Legal Age of Access to Tobacco. Number 2, the National Cancer Institute report, Adolescents Who Wouldn't Have Smoked May Be Drawn to Electronic Cigarettes. Number 3, the Department of Defense Code of Federal Regulation, Part 102-74, Tobacco Control Efforts in the Department of Defense. Number 4, the U.S. Surgeon General Executive Summary Report, Preventing Tobacco Use Among Youth and Young Adults. Number 5, Tobacco Control Legal Consortium Law Symposium, There is No Constitutional Right to Smoke. Number 6, the HBC Journal of Environmental and Public Health, Impact of Tobacco Control Interventions on Smoking Initiation, Cessation, and Prevalence, a Systemic Review. And number 7, the HBC Journal of Environmental and Public Health, Impact of Tobacco Control Interventions on Smoking Initiation, Cessation, and Prevalence, a Systematic Review, Table 2. I am a voice of a mother, of a grandmother, and of an aunt. My voice matters, for I'm speaking on behalf of my children, my grandchildren, my nieces, and my nephews. I'm also the voice of those in our community with no voice. So I appeal to each of you as the elected leaders entrusted with the privilege of enacting legislation for the protection and betterment of our island, to seriously consider the positive impact this bill will have on our island, our youth, our future, and give it your full and undivided support. I alone cannot do this. Our coalition as a whole cannot do this, but with your support, we will take the necessary steps to ensure that we are doing everything we can to protect our youth from the negative effects of tobacco. I keep you and all your fellow colleagues in the legislature in my heart of prayers as you continue to improve the quality of life for each of us. Thank you for once again allowing me this opportunity to come before you and make my plea to you on behalf of our community, most especially my grandchildren, my nieces, and nephews, and all the children of Guam. Thank you. I also would like to, I've been asked by two family members along with Corey Chan of the American Cancer Society to read their testimony. The first one, Honorable Benjamin J. Cruz, Speaker of the 34th Guam Legislature, and honorable members of the 34th Guam Legislature. Buenas and half a day. My name is Jose C. Okada, and I am a resident of the village of Barragata. I am a veteran and have served in the U.S. Army for 30 years. I'm a father, grandfather, and an uncle. I'm a former smoker for 25 years, and I write to you to express my position on Bill 9-34 COR, and I am in support of this bill and its intent. With cancer being the second leading cause of death on Guam, I'm taking a stand to do the right thing. The movement committed to saving lives is well worth my support. I am well aware of the evidence-based data and clearly demonstrates that adolescent brains are uniquely vulnerable to the effects of nicotine and nicotine addiction from the Institute of Medicine 2005, and that at an earlier age of initiation extends the potential duration of smoke throughout the lifespan from the U.S. Surgeon General 2012. Delaying access to tobacco for our most vulnerable so we can protect them from the possible lifetime of addiction and the difficulty and trauma of quitting definitely matters to me. The inclusion of electronic cigarettes in this bill is a benefit I feel is greatly needed. Recently, there was an incident in the news of a battery explosion, and great harm and physical damage was done to the user. This is a frightening thing to know that it has happened in our community. I am but one voice, but I am united with those in our community that fight to protect our youth and our island for future generations. And I urge all senators to hear my voice and the thousands of others that believe a life matters, our family matters, our community matters, and our island matters by voting yes on this bill. Sincerely yours, Jose C. Okada, Colonel, retired U.S. Army. I also have a similar letter. Honorable Benjamin J. Cruz, Speaker of the 34th Guam Legislature, and honorable members of the 34th Guam Legislature. Buenas and half a day. My name is Bruce Pecan, and I'm a resident of the village of Tamuni. I am a veteran and have served in the U.S. Air Force Reserve for over 25 years. I'm a father and grandfather. I have been a non-smoker all my life, and I'm writing to you to express my position on this bill, and that I am in support of this bill and its intent. Once again, with cancer being the second leading cause of death on Guam, I'm taking a stand to do the right thing. The movement committed to saving lives is well worth my support. I am aware of the evidence-based data and clearly demonstrates that adolescent brains are uniquely vulnerable to the effects of nicotine and nicotine addiction, and at the early age of initiation extends the potential duration of smoking throughout the lifespan. Delaying access to tobacco for our most vulnerable so we can protect them from a possible lifetime of addiction and difficulty and trauma for quitting definitely matters to me, and the inclusion of electronic cigarettes in this bill is a benefit I feel is greatly needed. Recently, there was an incident in the news of the battery explosion and the great harm and physical damage that was done to the user, and this is a frightening thing to know that it has happened in our community. I, too, am but one voice. but I am also united with those in our community that fight to protect our youth and our island for future generations. And I urge all senators to hear my voice and the thousands of others that believe a life matters, our family matters, our community matters, and our island matters by voting yes on this bill. Sincerely yours, Bruce E. Pecan, Colonel, United States Air Force, retired. Thirty-fourth Guam Legislature Committee on Appropriation and Adjudication, Speaker Benjamin J.F. Cruz, Chairman, Senator Frank B. Uggan, Jr., Vice Chair. Testimony in support of Bill 9-34 COR from Corey Chan, Hawaii Pacific Region, the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. The American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network supports Bill 9-34, a measure that would raise the minimum age for the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products to 21 years old. This bill is important because nationally, 95% of adult smokers start before they turn 21. Additionally, adolescent brains are more susceptible to the effects of nicotine and nicotine addiction, so it is critical to protect young people from tobacco products. Tobacco initiation and use by youth and young adults can substantially be reduced by the most effective tobacco control strategies, including increasing the price of tobacco products through regular and significant cigarette and other tobacco product taxes, implementing comprehensive smoke-free and tobacco-free laws and policies for all public places, and fully funding tobacco prevention and cessation programs. Restricting our youth and young adults' access to tobacco products can be a critical component to a comprehensive strategy to reduce initiation and lifetime addiction. Laws intended to restrict youth commercial access to tobacco products are only effective when combined with interventions to educate retailers, mobilize the community, and actively enforce the law. Raising the minimum sale to 21, coupled with these additional interventions, has the potential to reduce youth and young adult initiation. In March 2015 report, Public Health Implications of Raising the Minimum Legal Access to Tobacco Products from the Institute of Medicine used two models to predict the impact of raising the minimum age of sale to 19, 21, and 25 nationally. The report found that raising the national minimum age of sale to 21 would have a substantially higher impact than raising the age to 19. Further, the two models estimate that raising the minimum age nationwide would reduce initiation, tobacco-related morbidity, and mortality access across a lifespan, and ultimately save lives. Specifically, the report models predicts that smoking prevalence would decline by 12% if the national minimum age of sale was raised to 21. One of the models also predicted that raising the national minimum age of sale to 21 would result approximately 223,000 fewer premature deaths, 50,000 fewer deaths from lung cancer, and 4.2 million fewer deaths of lives lost to those individuals born between 2000 and 2019. The Institute of Medicine report concluded that active enforcement of minimum age laws can reduce underage sales, and the additional measures such as targeted retail education, community education, and mobilization, and a mass media campaign can improve retail compliance. The Institute of Medicine report provides new, useful information about the potential benefits of increasing the minimum legal age of sale of tobacco products nationally. The report also states that published evidence on the real-world impact of raising the minimum age is very limited at this time, and most notably because so few jurisdictions have implemented such a policy. The federal minimum age of sale of cigarettes and most other tobacco products is 18 years of age. In most states, the minimum age for tobacco products is also 18. Hawaii and California recently became the first two states to raise the minimum age to 21, while 4 other states prohibit sales to individuals under the age of 19. As of February 2017, at least 215 local jurisdictions prohibit the sale of tobacco to individuals under the age of 21. Therefore, there is substantial opportunity not only to increase the minimum age of sale of all tobacco products to 21 across the country, but also evaluate its effectiveness at reducing initiation among youth and young adults. Tobacco companies heavily target young adults ages 18 to 21 through a variety of marketing activities, sponsoring music and sporting events, bar promotions, college marketing programs, college scholarships, and parties, because they know it is a critical time period for solidifying tobacco addiction. Increasing the age of sale of tobacco products to 21 will help counter the tobacco industry's effort to target young people at a critical time when they move from experimenting with tobacco to regular smoking. It would also help keep tobacco out of high schools, where younger teens often obtain products from the older students. Bill 9-34 will make it harder for young adults and adolescents alike to access and become addicted to cigarettes and other tobacco products. This legislation is part of a comprehensive tobacco control strategy that includes regular and significant tobacco tax increases, implementing a comprehensive smoke-free law, and fully funding best practice tobacco prevention and cessation programs to reduce youth initiation and help tobacco users quit. And we urge your support. Along with my testimonies, I would also like to submit 25 testimonies. I will not read them. From our partners throughout the island and the region, our partners from the different islands. I have testimonies here from Mr. John Ho Yu, Senior Fellow, University of Washington School of Medicine. He's a board member of the Asian Pacific Partners for Empowerment and Leadership. Vayong Mao, a member of the Board of Directors for Appeal. Dr. Caleb Otto, he's an ambassador and permanent representative of Palau to the United States. He's the vice chair of the Appeals Board. Cynthia Henson, member of the Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition. Ms. Kavita Hemlani Ray, the chairman of the Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition. Dr. Insaf Ali, president of the Guam Medical Society. Dr. Joel Mark Rubio and Dr. Annette David from Health Partners. Ms. Kimberly Dolores, a resident of Guam and one of our interns. Mr. Matthew Myers, president of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Dr. Chen Hung, a medical oncologist from the Guahan Physicians and Consultants, Laddie Stone Cancer Care. Mr. John Arthur Plews, he's a youth member of the 31st Guam Youth Congress. Ms. Kendra McDonald, a member of the 31st Guam Youth Congress. Mr. Kenny McDonald, a member of the 31st Guam Youth Congress. Mr. Lee Buenso Seiko Lum, professor and principal investigator, Pacific Regional Central Cancer Registry Program and Co-Pacific Regional Comprehensive Cancer Control Program in Hawaii. Ms. Melissa Young, a member of the Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition. Ms. Rachel Leon Guerrero, Professor of Nutrition, Associate Director, Western Pacific Tropical Research Center, U54 Cancer Grant Principal Investigator from our Cancer Registry. Ms. Rebecca Robles, Administrator, CNMI, Non-Communicable Disease Bureau, Division of Public Health. Mr. Shaq Alec, Chairman of the Pacific Partners for Tobacco-Free Islands. Ms. Lisa V. Santos, President of the Philippine Ambulatory Pediatrics Association. Mr. Rod Liu, Asian Pacific Partners for Empowerment, Advocacy, and Leadership. He is the Executive Director of the Appeals Board. And a testimony from Youth for Youth Live. I am also submitting into record a petition signed by members of current active and retired members, veterans, and active duty members of our U.S. military that have signed a petition in support of this bill. I am also submitting a copy of the 31st Guam Youth Congress bill that they had passed in January comparable to Bill 9-34 in support of raising the minimum legal age of tobacco to 21. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the most important thing, I have 1,310 plus, we're still gathering, petitions in support of this bill. I'm submitting into testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz.
Office Day, Speaker Cruz, Vice Speaker Draghi, honorable members of the 34th Guam Legislature. My name is Peter J. Cruz. I have been working in the field of tobacco prevention and control for the past 14 years. I am currently a certified tobacco cessation facilitator, board member of a nationally known organization that deals with health disparities of Asians and Pacific Islanders, Asian Pacific Partners for Empowerment, Advocacy, and Leadership, also known as APPEAL. I am a founding member of the Pacific Partners for Tobacco-Free Islands, known as PPTFI, and I am a co-leader of the Tobacco Control Action Team of the Guam Non-Communicable Disease Consortium. But probably the most important position that I do hold is that I am a parent, and I am a Chamorro of this beautiful island. In 2003, my clinical administrator approached me with the opportunity of becoming a tobacco cessation counselor. A report had been released earlier that year that showed that Guam had the highest male prevalence rate of smoking in the United States. Since then, I have witnessed a tremendous amount of success in passages of laws to protect the health and well-being of the Guamanian people. But I have also witnessed the negative effects of tobacco products in the physical, psychosocial, and financial aspects of individuals' lives. The impact that affects the individual also creates a domino effect. The family, both the immediate as well as the extended, are gravely affected. The community, the workplace, the business sectors are all affected because of the decision to use tobacco. I do not want to barge you with all the statistics because the facts are there. What I do want to stress is that nothing positive has ever arrived from the production or the consumption of tobacco products. The physical toll that has caused the people of Guam is pathetic. The comparison of pre-war health and post-war health issues are alarming. Currently, our island's health due to tobacco products has debilitated our progress in becoming an island of proud and healthy Pacific Islanders. A majority of our current health issues are tobacco related. The psychosocial impact of tobacco has created is sad. I have witnessed several times where the hunger of a child is foregone for the purchase of tobacco products by a parent. Tobacco has silently dismantled our perception of who is really the villain. When we lay to rest a loved one and a pack of cigarettes is placed in the coffin to accompany them to the world after, something is definitely disconnected. The financial repercussion of this from tobacco use is so costly, and because of the addiction, the average citizen often has no clues about its full impact. Yet, direct health costs, the quality of health services, and the specialty of care needed are all determined by the burden and illnesses directly related to tobacco use. The one fact that is clear is that all of the issues related to tobacco use is preventable. The burden now falls on the 34th Guam Legislature. What is right, and what is wrong is wrong. Do the right in passing Bill 934 and secure the future of Guam, but most importantly, give the youth of today a chance to fully reach its potential. Sejus Masi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz. Dr. David.
Buenos dias, half a day, Speaker Cruz and honorable members of the 34th Guam Legislature. I was asked by the Community Coalition to revisit this presentation, which gives an overview for the rationale for the bill. I have updated the data, so what you're going to get is the very latest data that we have as of February of 2017. and I'm doing this in my capacity as the chair of the Guam State Epidemiological Outcomes Work Group, which is the longest running data work group here on island. Because this bill seeks to raise the legal age of access to 21, we wanted to name it 21 Reasons for Tobacco 21. And the first reason has to do with mortality. Last year, we were showing 2013 official mortality data. This is now the 2014 mortality data. Last year, 6 of the top 10 causes of death were tobacco-related. This year, based on the latest data released from Public Health, 9 of the 10 top causes of death are either caused, aggravated, or associated with tobacco. And the top 3, heart disease, cancer, and stroke, are all caused by tobacco. The second reason has to do with prevalence, and Kathy has mentioned this. This is the latest 2015 data of tobacco use in the U.S., including Guam, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. And we have the dubious honor of having the highest rate of tobacco use for both adults and youth. Our youth tobacco use rate is equivalent to the adult tobacco use rate in the U.S. So our youth are smoking and using tobacco at the same level that adults are using it in the U.S. That is where we're at today. The third reason has to do with initiation. We know from our data that most Guam smokers start before the age of 21. And in fact, our local data shows that 2 out of 3 begin before the age of 18, and the other 1/3 begin between the ages of 18 to 24. If we raise the age of access to 21, we will be catching just about all of the current smokers before they reach that age of initiation. Reason number 4 has to do with addiction. Most of our users are addicted. In fact, among our high school tobacco users, more than 80% have tried to quit in the past year, but they've not been successful because the addiction is so pervasive, which leads us to reason number 5. And the reason for this is that the earlier you begin, the more likely you are to become addicted. Our brains don't mature during adolescence sufficiently to resist the addictive power of nicotine. And we have that from the Institute of Medicine as well as from the U.S. Surgeon General, which really leads us to some of the key arguments against the bill. We have heard that at 18, you can fight for the military. At 18, you can get married, assuming, of course, that the reason for marriage is reproduction. And at 18, you can vote. So why can't you smoke at the age of 18? And the answer to that is that at 18, your body is primed for military action. You will never be at your physical best after 18. At 18, you are at the best for action. At 18, you are at the best for reproduction. Your eggs, your sperm, will never be better than during that age of 18. And cogitation, the ability to reason, your brain, will be at its best also at that age. Unfortunately, at that age, your sensitivity to addiction is also very high. So on one end, you are at your best for military action, for reproduction and marriage, and for voting and doing cognitive things. But you are at your worst for addictive behavior. So comparing these 3 things to tobacco use is like comparing not just apples to oranges, but apples to lemay. They are worlds apart, just worlds apart. Reason number 6, mathematical models say that if you raise the legal age, that you will have a substantial impact on lives and save money. 10% smoking-related deaths will be reduced over time. You will be increasing the smoking age, and you'll see 12% less smokers. And you will be saving about 4.2 million years of life saved. That's a mathematical model. Who knows if that will play out or not? But we have real-life proof, which is reason number 7. We've had an ecologic experiment, if you will. A town in Massachusetts, Needham, was the first town to raise the age of access to 21. And what they were able to see was tobacco use in that town went down by 47% over the next 3 years, which was more than any of the other towns around it which had not enacted that law. So we actually have a real-life example of the impact of this law. Reason number 8, there is no adverse impact on business. We know that smokers who are 18 to 20 only make up about 2.12% of the total cigarette consumption, and in all the jurisdictions, and there are now over 500 jurisdictions in the U.S. who have this law, none of the tobacco retailers have gone out of business because of raising the age to 21. So no impact on business. Reason number 9, majority of the population actually support this law. In the US, 3 out of 4, including smokers, and here in Guam, it's 6 out of 10. So majority of the community actually wants to see this law happen. Reason number 10, youth, who are the ones who will be affected, support the measure as well. And you will hear from some of them today. These are just taken from some of the online discussions on the web. Reason number 11, the experts on youth also support the measure. So pediatricians, this is a statement from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which says that they strongly recommend raising the age of access to 21. And as you've heard from other speakers, raising the legal age to 21 doesn't just protect those who are 18 to 20, it protects the younger children because they get their cigarettes from those who are 18 to 20. Others are enacting the law. If we had done this the first time Speaker Cruz brought it out, we would have been the first in the country. But as it is, we now have California and Hawaii who have passed the law. And as of this month, February 17, there are at least 215 localities in 14 states that have raised the age of access to 21. Now we go to the other half, which is the e-cigarette part, and that's equally important. E-cigarettes are electronic nicotine delivery systems. They have many names: e-cigs, e-cigarettes. They now have e-cigars. They have e-pipes. They have e-hookahs. So I call it etc. They're all devices that deliver nicotine and other substances to the user in the form of a vapor rather than smoke. So that's why the use of e-cigarettes is known as vaping. How do they work? You have a device that has a battery and a motor. The battery activates the motor, and what the motor does is it atomizes a liquid that is in there and creates the vapor. And then the user inhales that vapor. Now, e-cigarettes claim to be safe. They claim to be helpful for stopping smoking. And they actually claim to be non-toxic. But that's fake news. And there is evidence to all of that. Reason number 14, they are toxic. We know that they're not regulated, so we don't know exactly what they contain. But from what have been done, what research has been done, we know that they have substances like propylene glycol, which is a known pulmonary irritant. They have heavy metals, which are neurotoxins, nitrosamines, which are carcinogens, diethylene glycol, diacetyl, all of which are linked to known adverse health impacts. So they are toxic. They contain nicotine, and they are highly addictive. And one e-cigarette, in this comparison, is equivalent to about 6 to 7 cigarettes, regular cigarettes. So consuming one e-cigarette gives you the amount of nicotine that you would find in about 6 or 7 cigarettes. That is how high the nicotine levels are. And smokers who use e-cigarettes to quit are actually less likely to quit tobacco use. And that came out in 2014. And even if they claim to be nicotine-free, the studies have shown, as run by the FDA, that more likely than not, they will still have nicotine. What the FDA did was to take a sample of all these e-cigarettes that claim to have no nicotine in them, and in all of them, except one sample, they all had measurable levels of nicotine. So it's still in there. E-cigarette vapor, the vapor itself, is also not safe. It contains measurable amounts of carcinogens. So there is secondhand vape. E-cigarettes can cause collateral damage, is reason number 18. Normally, to save on money, what people do is buy the refill in bottles. And the bottles can contain anywhere to as much as 7 grams of nicotine. The fatal dose of nicotine is about 30 to 60 milligrams for adults, and for children, it's about 10 milligrams. There are 1,000 milligrams in a gram, and a bottle can contain as much as 7 grams or 7,000 milligrams of nicotine. So highly toxic. They are very colorful. They have delicious smells and flavors and are very attractive to children. And we have already seen, as noted in the journal Pediatrics 2016, poisoning by children under 6 by nicotine and e-cigarettes went up not by 100%, but by 1,500% between 2013 and 2015. So we know this is happening. We've already had one report of suicide death from IV injection of the nicotine liquid in the UK, and one documented child death from ingestion. These are not safe. They are not safe to have around children. And reason number 19, in addition to the poisoning, they are explosive. These are actual photos of victims where the e-cigarettes have exploded, either while they were using them or trying to change the cartridge. And we've already had one case here in Guam documented who required extensive facial surgery to preserve his eyesight and reconstruct his face. It exploded while he was using it. Youth vaping is rising very rapidly. I think this is very critical. In the U.S., as of 2015, 16% of high school students vape. In Guam, that number is 32%, so more than double. And middle school students, for me, this is the most concerning thing. In the U.S., 5.3% of middle school students are current users of e-cigarettes. In Guam, our data is 23%. So almost 5 times higher. These are middle school students who have vaped in the past 30 days from the time they took the survey. It's a major issue. E-cigarettes are also created by tobacco companies. And the reason I bring this up is if it looks like a cigarette and it smells like a cigarette and you use it like a cigarette and it addicts you like a cigarette and it's made by the cigarette companies, it's a tobacco product. It's a tobacco product. So 21 reasons for tobacco 21 reasons for Bill 934. The FDA has already started national legislation, but we need to go a step further because these are our kids. And really the question is, are they being regulated in other places internationally? Yes. There are 23 countries that have completely banned electronic cigarettes. Federally, FDA has started. And here we have a law that prohibits the distribution to minors. In the U.S., as of January this year, 46 states that prohibit sales to minors, 12 states that restrict the use in smoke-free venues, and in addition, 457 local laws that restrict its use in other venues. Institutional policy right now, public health, UOG, GCC, and DODEA schools ban the use of e-cigarettes on campus. And Department of Transportation is looking at a ban in planes, but already, as you know, if you've flown on United, they will not allow you to bring them on board because of the explosion risk. So it's already being done. It really is a smart move to raise the age of access to 21 and to include e-cigarettes in our tobacco control policies because ultimately this is really about, as you have all said, our kids. Some of the things we can do: expand the Natasha Act to include e-cigarettes and other devices, tax those e-cigarettes at a rate similar to tobacco products, prohibit the distribution of free samples, especially to young people, and educate our health professionals that these are not a cessation device. You know, the bill really forces us to confront the question: at what age do we want our kids and our children, our grandchildren, to start smoking? At what age do we want our kids, our grandchildren, to start smoking? And I know for me, I have a new grandchild. The answer to that is no. I don't ever want them to start smoking. And if we really want to protect them and really avoid that addiction, this bill makes sense. So thank you for giving us the time. I have other testimonies, but Kathy has mentioned them, so we won't read them. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. David.
We received a video testimony from Ms. Rosa Bala, who is right now having her chemotherapy in the Philippines. With your permission,
Please.
we'd like to show that.
Services, Department of Public Health and Social Services. I am providing my personal testimony in support of Bill 934, the Youth Protection Act of 2017, which is raising the minimum age of legal access to tobacco products and electronic cigarettes to 21 years of age. I am videotaping this testimony at the confinement of St. Luke's Medical Center in Manila. I appeal to you, my dear senators, especially the newly elected, young, dynamic, bright, and committed senators. I'm a cancer patient. Cancer changed my life. I am a strong advocate of health and wellness in our community, yet I am not spared of cancer. I have breast cancer, stage 4. I'm fighting for my life, and I need you to help us. Need you to help us eradicate these non-communicable diseases and cancers in our community. Guam is a beautiful community. It is my home. It is your home. Why do we have to wait to act now? We need to act now. Time is of essence. Please, I have been exposed to environmental risk. I've been exposed to secondhand smoke. My husband, for 26 years, have been smoking. I did not know at that time yet the effects of exposure to secondhand smoke. My father smoked also when we were growing up, and I've been exposed to that as well. Raising the age to 21 has a lot of data to show the benefits. People think we are invading their private rights. What private rights you have? We share the same environment. We share the same air. If you have your own world, fine, but you're exposing people to the dangers of secondhand smoke. Come on, people. We have to work together. Please, look at the healthcare costs spent by Medicaid to healthcare. $5 million. And through the efforts of Senator Rodriguez, we're able to get $1 million for prevention. That's not enough. Dear leaders, you are the future of this community. I appeal to you. You will never understand how it is unless you're a cancer patient. I'm here right now. I'm here, sad, lonely, away from my family. I appeal to you. Let's us work together and make Guam a healthy community. What are you waiting for? You are going to sacrifice the health of all the community than the benefits of few people? Come on, guys. We elected you to office because we believe in you. Please, help us. Support the bill. Think, use your conscience, use your heart. It's for our people, for our children, for our children's children. Let us save the future environment, the future generation. Come on. I trust you, dear people. I believe in you. Make the difference now. Please, I beg you, I appeal to you that you will use your heart in making your judgment and in support of this bill. Thank you so much. I love you guys.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of this panel?
Miss Kathy, good evening. The binders in front of us, how many signatures do you have in favor of this bill?
They're all in favor, and at last count it was 1,310, but as we walked into the public hearing room, we were given additional signatures, so we have over 1,310, and they're all in support. They come from cross sectors of the community, from the medical professions, from moms, dads, smokers, from veterans. So it's from our community.
And then you also stated that you did have a petition with active duty military personnel?
Correct.
In
Which is
support
not
of
part of this.
Okay, and what is their age range for the active duty personnel? Is there anyone 18, 19, 20?
Apologies. I have a couple 19-year-olds and all the way up to 69.
Okay.
So 27 5243.
And you'll be submitting that,
Yes,
correct?
I have submitted it already.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say our paths have connected many times in the past, and I want to thank you very much for your passion and your commitment to remove this awful disease from our island. I stand in your circle, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask on these two questions. One is on the list of possible future actions, and I think others of you on this panel also mentioned other possible future actions. Was it your conclusion that this action, raising the age, would be more effective than the others at this point, or the fastest solution, as opposed to some of these that you suggested were raising taxes on similar tobacco products and doing other things with the e-cigarettes and things like that? Do you think for health purposes this is the most effective and quickest solution?
I think what we know from the science is that there's no one single policy answer that will solve the issue, but what you really need is a comprehensive set. And I would say that this is actually the low-lying fruit. This is the one that makes sense. It's something that is accepted by the community. It's something that's supported by the data, and I think it's important to get it in there. The other interventions and actions, I think, would be a logical follow-through once we have this in place.
And then one more question is, you talked about impact to businesses, and the referral for this bill suggests that it has a negative fiscal impact, would be negative to the government of Guam's budget. Do you have information as to that?
I don't think, from what I'm aware of, and at least with the experience in the other jurisdictions that have passed this law, there has never been a negative business impact. And I think it would be hard to support that contention, because the market share that you're really looking at is a very small market. The smokers who are 18 to 20 make up a very small, very minuscule part of that of the consumer market for tobacco. So I don't really think that we would be seeing a negative business impact.
And excuse me, Vice Speaker, I also like to highlight that the passage of this bill will not cost the government anything. There is no cost to the government to pass this bill.
Okay, all right. And I wanted to thank all of you for your testimony and for your efforts in this regard, and for cancer in general. I really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank each one of you for your advocacy, for your continued education and outreach on this issue. I also really appreciated the testimony of the veterans, so Mr. Okada, Mr. Pecan. But I share the same question that Senator Nelson raised with regard to younger set of vets. If you have any information on that you might be able to share with the committee following this, that would be helpful.
Unfortunately, when we secured the signatures, time was of essence, so we weren't able to reach as many, so it was just who was available to us at the time.
Understood.
And we did get 2 19-year-olds, but you know, when we spoke with these individuals, or when I spoke with these individuals that signed it, what I was told was that their fellow, I guess, soldiers were also in support of it. It's just we weren't able to get their signature because we couldn't get to them.
That's helpful. Also, as a chairperson of Innovation, Economic, Workforce, and Youth Development, the data that you shared about tobacco initiation is really compelling for me, as well as morbidity and mortality, and ultimately just saving lives. So there are several Youth Congress representatives that I reached out to them earlier this week and asked them to provide testimony, and they also did in support of the bill. And so we have that in our packets, and I think you mentioned a few of them as well.
That's correct.
So thank you for that. I think it's important because they're probably going to be some of the most affected members of our community.
We also have Youth for Youth Lives testimony in support of this.
Excellent, and that's really helpful. But again, I just want to thank you for giving us the data and a lot of the hard numbers that can support your testimony today. So thank you so much for your work.
If I might suggest to either one or both of you, maybe provide Senator Nelson and Senator Lee with a copy of the statements of the Hawaii Admiral in general when Hawaii raised their smoking age to 21. I could provide it, but I think it'd be best if you provided it.
Absolutely.
And then it has
That
at
will be
least
forthcoming.
arm's length. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for all the testimony, and I don't think it can be disputed, everything that you presented. I've definitely met with Kathy and the group on several occasions, and again, what you're saying is very hard to say no to, but they understand that my concern is perhaps a little bit different, in that it goes against the notion of the ability of a legal adult to make a decision, however bad the product may be, but to make a decision to purchase a legal product based upon age. And I guess in this situation, it's hard to argue against everything that you presented. But the extension of the thought of limiting the ability of an adult, a legal adult, to purchase a legal product extends beyond tobacco. And that's kind of my concern, is that we also know that this island faces a very high rate of diabetes, other diseases and whatnot, related to not tobacco necessarily, but perhaps salt content, sugar content, and other products like those that are legal products but are on the market that do cause physical harm as well. And I have not been able yet to come to that point where I have been able to address in my own mind, where does it stop, right? I mean, if we go down this road with you, and again, all the science and all the data seems to point that that's the right decision to make when it comes to the tobacco products, it still could possibly infringe upon other products, or the ability of an individual to buy other legal products that may be just as harmful, because of their high fat content, sugar content, salt content. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to help me reconcile that problem in my own mind. Could you speak to that, please?
Yes, of course, Senator. I think perhaps the best way to conceptualize the sort of legislative synchronicity would be to maybe not align this with salt or sugar, for which there is no existing legislation, but maybe to align it with other products for which we do have existing legislation, including alcohol, and now for the proposal for marijuana, where we actually have a law on the books where alcohol, the legal age of purchase is 21, and the governor himself has said for marijuana that he supports the legal age for use at 21. And I think if we wanted to have legislative synchronicity, it certainly makes a lot of sense to increase the age of access for tobacco to 21 as well.
And I appreciate that to Dr. David, and I have the utmost respect for you and even this whole group, but it still doesn't address that concern. I mean, in this situation, first of all, that marijuana legislation is not on the books, so I'm not sure it counts. I understand the argument in terms of alcohol, but even that, we can go on to a long discussion of how that came about. And like I said, I'm not against, or I'm not necessarily trying to oppose this bill. I just haven't reconciled in my mind as how far do you take the whole concept of limiting the ability of a legal adult to buy a legal product. That's my concern. And that is harmful, right? That is harmful. And like I said, because we do have also high incidences of other conditions on this island that can be attributed not only to, or maybe not even to tobacco products, but to perhaps the high salt content, the high sugar content, and whatnot. And again, if we start down this road, does that set the precedence and open the door for us to be able to start also passing legislation that would prohibit a legal adult from purchasing other products that are legal?
Well, I think maybe what's important also to keep in perspective, Senator, is that for these products that you have mentioned, like sugar or salt, there is not much data that shows you that it will kill you if used as intended. Tobacco, on the other hand, is probably the only legal product we have on the market that will kill you if you use it the way it was meant to. So it's a bit of an idiosyncratic product, if you will. But what we do know, and I think we always have to go back to the science, to the data, what we do know is that at 18, the vulnerability to lifelong addiction exists for tobacco. And so I think for all these products, where you have the best scientific rationale for limiting access is, in fact, for tobacco.
I appreciate that answer.
If
really
I
do.
may, Senator, I just want to once again read my conclusion, or the conclusion of the Tobacco Control Legal Consortium held on their symposium entitled "There's No Constitutional Right to Smoke," and I quote, that the so-called right to smoke is actually a smokescreen, and there is no constitutional right to smoke. Courts are quick to find that smoke-free legislation is rationally related to a legitimate government goal, since they have long held that protecting the public's health is one of the most essential functions of government. In regards to your comment about the sugar-sweetened beverages and salt reduction and everything, and where do we stop, or how far do we go? My opinion is merely the fact that we're here to argue and defend and fight for this bill. And would this open the door to that down the road? I can't say. I can't say yes or no. All I know is that what is important to us is to ensure that we protect our youth, because of the fact that tobacco use has already indicated on our island that it is causing havoc everywhere. And so for me, and just for me, and I can't speak for the coalition, I guess we'll address that when it comes. And if it's to open a door, I can't say whether it will or it won't.
No, and I appreciate it.
Senator, as
Yes,
a
sir.
cessation facilitator, one of the things I look at is the maturation of that individual. And one of the things that's last developed in the brain is the judgment. And that usually falls around the 21 age limit. And so when we look at that, that just because that maturational process being developed, they make a better call for themselves at age 21 than at 18. We talk about the military, me being a former veteran. Do you see any 18-year-old colonels? No, because their judgment call is naysay at that age. We see them at 45, at 50, yes, but it's just that pure judgment call from the cessation aspects of it that I practice.
You know, Mr. Cruz and Kathy, I really do appreciate your responses, but I need to at least perhaps put a rebuttal to it. And not that I'm disagreeing with you, but because it exists. And I will address the constitutional issue first. I don't think anybody is arguing that there is a constitutional right to smoke. I definitely am not. I'm not, right? It's a matter of an adult's ability to make a decision upon, for him or herself to buy a perfectly legal product. That's the only thing. I'm not arguing the constitutionality. It's just the ability to make that decision. And just so I just want to make that clear. Right? I don't think this is a constitutional issue. This is definitely an issue that we can decide for ourselves as, in our own policy. Mr. Cruz, again, I appreciate what you said too. I agree. And I guess the reason why I kind of pause at that is because this body had also, and you had talked about, the judgment has not really fully developed to the point where they can make decisions. I mean, there's a lot of different factors, perhaps at that age, that really haven't lent itself to a real mature decision on some instances, right? And right, the maturational processes in their heads and in their minds and whatnot. And I suppose that one of the things that I carry with me is the fact that this legislature passed a law that allows 17-year-olds to vote, right? And it almost runs contrary to what you're suggesting. And that's where I'm kind of caught in this gray area, right, in terms of the policies of our island. And I'm not objecting to this policy at all. And I've told you that, Kathy, right, that all the arguments are valid, all the health issues that are related with smoking. There is no, and I've said it on the floor, there is nothing redeeming about a cigarette and smoking a cigarette, except to the smoker who just needs the next fix. And even that is not redeeming in itself. But when you take it to a higher level of trying to do the analysis of the policies of this island, right, and that's why I asked the question, where does it stop, right, when you start talking about other products that could be equally harmful to our residents' health, right, as well as the age of youth and the maturational process that comes with aging, right? Are we going all over the place, right, by doing this, right? On one hand, we're saying, yes, 17-year-olds are fully capable to understand and make a mature decision to vote, and yet on the other hand, we're saying, but at 18 to 20, they're not mature enough to make a rational decision for their own health. And again, I'm not knocking the policy. I believe it's a good policy. I personally just have a problem reconciling that thought.
Senator, I just have a phone pass from the back. What it said really was that it's a chain of second-hand sugar or second-hand salt. But I think to go back to your issue, again, in terms of policy coherence, I think the most closely answer would be back to the law that we have on the books for alcohol. And I think the policy coherence makes sense to raise the age to 21. And in the end, for 18-year-olds, it's really about the addiction. It's not about the ability to make that decision. At the age, you can make that decision. And like I say, at 18, your brain is at its best. But if you're vulnerable to the addiction, I think
That's probably your strongest argument at this point, at least in my mind. But yeah, if I could just address the whole issue about secondhand smoke, and I understand the dangers of secondhand smoke, that is, I suppose, all the other, what I want to say is that all the other legislation that has been passed concerning the prohibition on smoking in public places or, whether it's in your car, whether it's in a bar, and bottom line is all the laws that are in place, right, are because of secondhand smoke and the effects that smoking has on other people. And that's why I've always had no problem with those myself, because of the effects it has on other people, smoking has on other people. This legislation is different. This legislation prohibits an individual from making a decision on his behalf, on his own behalf, to purchase a legal product, right? It has nothing to do with the secondhand smoke, although the ramifications may be there, right? But that's not the aim of this legislation. And again, I'm not against it, but I haven't been able to reconcile those two those two issues to, perhaps be a lot more coherent in my own mind when it comes to passing public policy. And that's all I'm saying. But thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, Dr. David, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Quabo, and Mrs. Castro. Thank you very much for your testimony and really your advocacy over the years. One thing that's extremely alarming that was shared with us in addition to the 21 reasons are the numbers from high school and middle school. When you're taking a look at 60% of our high school students, if I'm tracking and if I heard correctly, because every now and then my ears pose some problems, but 60% of our high school population have tried it. 30% of our high school population are current users. You look at the middle school, 40% have tried tobacco, and 20% in middle school are current users. And one thing I found incredibly alarming was information was shared about 2 weeks ago that they had received a report. Someone in this room had received a report that in elementary school someone was identified to have been using tobacco. To me, that is just alarming statistics. And certainly this particular piece of legislation would work towards the maturation component and make sure that that's part of the consideration. But what I wanted to add to the conversation is, if you're looking at 60% of high school, 40% of middle school, there really has to be an aggressive and concerted effort on enforcement and compliance. Because if our high school and middle school students are having access to tobacco products, then we as a community certainly need to put additional resources and figure out the equation so that even if we raise the age from 18 to 21, are we still going to prevent the percentages that we're seeing today? Are we going to drop it significantly so that in fact it shows that the corresponding adjustment or increase of usage age authorized by law, 18 to 21, could correspondingly result in a significant reduction in these percentages? So those are the things that we certainly have to monitor, but I wanted to emphasize this component, the enforcement and the compliance, because that has to be also equally an important component of looking at the total community approach. So I appreciate your comments, and I certainly hope, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chairman, that we can work on community efforts in terms of really the enforcement and the compliance of any piece of legislation that we pass that would address the tobacco usage.
Senator, I go out to the elementary schools, I go to the middle schools, I go to the high schools, and it's sad. It's sad. We definitely need to do something.
Thank you, and I certainly hope we will. Thank you again.
And thank you for your comments, Senator, because as we stated, even with your fellow senators in our one-to-one meetings, that raising the minimum legal age is just one component. We must have a comprehensive approach towards tobacco control on our island, and this is one component, and of course enforcement would also follow us along with prevention and education, which is something that our coalition is actively working on. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one additional question. It's my understanding that at a previous hearing, it was mentioned that just the great cost to the Guam Memorial Hospital and the people of Guam for tobacco-related cancer and illness. And I wanted to see if either Dr. David or Ms. Castro, if you have those estimates with you today, or if you're able to provide the committee with that information.
That report came from one of our partners, Staywell Insurance, and I do believe they're here to testify and give you additional data on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Grace Murphy, Kimberly Dolores. Jessica Uggan. Renata Rudelli. Ms. Murphy.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the 34th Guam Legislature. My name is Grace Murphy, and I am the chairman of the Commission of Nursing Leadership for the Guam Nurses Association. And I represent 170 strong, dedicated healthcare workers who had been in the midst of all events, caring, advocating, educating patients, family members, even our youth, in order for them to be empowered and make the right decision to really improve their lifestyles. But I am here to read to you the testimony of our group, the Guam Nurses Association, along with my two colleagues. And we strongly support Bill 9-34. As public health professionals, we always have a duty to uphold the welfare and health of the members of our community. In our practice, whether it be in critical care, hospital, outpatient setting, we have constantly witnessed the tragic and costly impact of tobacco-related illnesses, noting that tobacco use is an entirely preventable cause of premature death and disease. And just reiterating the testimonies that were given earlier, here are some figures and statistics, and I'm pretty sure you are all aware of that, including the report of the public health implications for raising the minimum age of legal access to tobacco products. IOM strongly concluded, the Institute of Medicine strongly concluded, that raising the tobacco sale age 21 will have a substantial positive impact on public health and will actually save lives. In this report, they predict that raising the minimum age for the sale of tobacco products to 21 will, of course, over time, will reduce the smoking rate by 12% and the smoking-related deaths by 10%, which translates to about 223,000 fewer premature deaths and 50,000 fewer deaths from lung cancer and 4.2 million fewer years of life lost across the nation. Subsequent data from localities, and that was shared by Dr. David, especially the several municipalities in Massachusetts, document that youth tobacco use significantly declined after raising the legal age. And as you have heard, Guam has the highest smoking rates among all states and territories. And you all agreed that those statistics are very alarming. So moreover, local data show that majority of today's smokers start before the age of 21. So therefore, Bill 9-34 stands to benefit the island's community by protecting the youth from addiction to tobacco. Since the bill also covers the inclusion of electronic cigarettes into tobacco control measures, there is growing evidence of the harmful effects of these products, both from chemicals in the cartridge fluid and vapor, as well as from explosion risks. And we all saw that in the presentation. Moreover, the nicotine in many of these e-cigarettes is highly addictive and sets the stage for future tobacco consumption. In 2016, the Federal Drug Administration extended its federal regulatory authority to e-cigarettes, validating the need to protect our youth from the adverse health impacts of these products. So in the interest of public health, 170 strong dedicated nurses of the Guam Nurses Association proudly supports Bill 9-34. We believe that the health of our people, especially our youth, is our most precious socioeconomic resource. And by protecting our youth from tobacco and e-cigarettes, we are setting the stage for continued progress and development. And of course, we are ensuring a healthier future for our island and our community. I thank you.
Ms. Murphy, thank you very much for that testimony, and please thank your 170 strong Guam Nurses Association for their support. Ms. Dolores?
Hafaday, Senators of the 34th Guam Legislature, thank you for taking the time to listen to my testimony. My name is Kimberly Dolores, and I am a 22-year-old Filipina born and raised on Guam, and I currently reside in Barrigada. I am also a current UOG student and intern. I am in support of raising the minimum legal age of tobacco product sales to 21. This policy will improve the overall health of Guam, specifically keeping in mind the youth. Guam continues to see the negative impact of tobacco use on the health of its people, and these numbers have already been mentioned, but I'd like to repeat that the rates of tobacco use for adults and youth are one of the highest in the nation. The rate is at 27.4% for current adult smokers and 17.6% for high school students. Tobacco use is also related to the top causes of cancer deaths as well as the top causes of death overall. The major point I'd like to emphasize is that these are all preventable. It is important to look at when adult smokers first try cigarettes. Surgeon General report found that about 96% of adult smokers try cigarettes for the first time before the age of 21. And for Guam, 2 out of 3 would have started before the age of 18. They would have started at a time when the brain is more susceptible to becoming addicted to nicotine. Thus, if we can delay the age of first use, we will decrease the likelihood of becoming a lifetime smoker. This bill accomplishes just that by making it difficult for youth to access these products. These statistics are unbelievable to me because I cannot fully understand how and why a 13-year-old, for example, would be smoking. And I understand that there are different circumstances and life stories. However, it's unfortunate to know that the children are partaking in such a risky behavior. And this is at a time when they are most vulnerable. Later down the line, that individual may reflect on whether it really was a choice. From my experience, I am fortunate to not have grown up with any type of negative pressure from family or friends. In fact, my father successfully quit smoking before I was born due to my older brother's health issues. Had my father not quit, who knows what kind of health condition he would be in today and what kind of costs and suffering that he would have had for himself, for his family, for the community of Guam. And as well as who knows what kind of condition my brother would be. And I am grateful that it was never a tough choice for me. However, many others may not have been as fortunate, and I would like others to have that same opportunity. So in conclusion, we should follow the footsteps of places such as Hawaii and California and increase the minimum age. It will improve the well-being of our island by protecting the youth and giving them the proper time to focus on growing rather than having to deal with a lifetime burden of tobacco. I would love to see a future where Guam is entirely tobacco-free, and this bill is one step in that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dolores. Ms. Happy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the committee. Hafaday, my name is Jessica again, and I am the Health Management Coordinator for Stawell Insurance Company. On behalf of Stawell, I'm here today to offer testimony and first-hand information on the true costs of medical care for smoking-related diseases and complications. Medical care expenses or losses involve various types of health services, whether for inpatient or outpatient doctor visits, laboratory tests, imaging procedures, prescription drug medications, or hospitalization. In the United States, the total economic cost for smoking is more than $300 billion a year, to include nearly $170 billion in direct medical care for adults, with more than $156 billion in lost productivity due to premature death and exposure to secondhand smoke. Medical care costs incurred from smoking-related illnesses pose an adverse effect to our community and to our healthcare industry. In our previously offered testimony, we looked at the cost patterns for patients ages 65 years old and older, a demographic which is commonly afflicted with chronic illnesses. We compared the medical cost patterns for non-smoking patients with chronic illnesses to those of patients who smoke within this age demographic. We found that in 2014, the medical expenses for those patients with smoking-related illnesses was 48.9 times higher than expenses for illnesses not related to smoking. A 65-year-old patient with a primary diagnosis of malignant neoplasm or cancer of the bronchus or lung brought about by chronic smoking has a monthly medical expense of approximately $40,079 per month, totaling $480,948 a year. That is $40,079 spent each month on hospitalizations, consultations, procedures, tests, and cancer medications. Treatment of secondary diseases caused by smoking, such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension, emphysema, and immune disorders are also included in these medical costs. This is a stark contrast to the medical costs of non-smoking patients who spent $9,466 annually on doctor's visits, inpatient treatments, and maintenance medication. In 2011, over 1/3 of Guam students reported using reported using any form of tobacco. 1 in 4 were currently smoking cigarettes. Each day, more than 3,200 people younger than the age of 18 smoked their first cigarette. And in that same day, 2,100 youth and young adults who had become occasional cigarette smokers become daily cigarette smokers. On average, smokers die 10 years earlier than non-smokers, and if this trend continues, 5.6 million of today's youth who are younger than the age of 18 are expected to die prematurely from a smoking-related illness, meaning 1 in every 13 Americans 17 years or younger who are alive today. The rapid trend and use of e-cigarettes for our youth and young adults offer yet another avenue for the exposure to nicotine and other harmful chemicals that are detrimental to their health. In 2014, more than 1/3 of young adults ages 18 to 24 have tried e-cigarettes, and in 2015, more than 3 million youth in middle and high school have used e-cigarettes. Many e-cigarettes contain harmful chemicals, including nicotine, which is highly addictive and can disrupt the growth of brain circuits in a still developing adolescent brain, which does not fully develop until the early to mid-20s. Other chemicals, such as diacetyl, which is linked to serious lung disease, and benzene, which is found in car exhaust, are used in flavorings of e-cigarettes. These young individuals are unnecessarily exposing themselves to addictive behaviors which negatively and adversely affect their way of life. They are laying the foundation to a quality of life diminished by increased medical expenses, treatments, procedures, dependence on medications, and ultimately a shorter lifespan. It is the responsibility of our island community and our leaders to protect, preserve, and ensure that our youth and our young adults are afforded the opportunity to live the highest quality of life. Thus, we at Stable Insurance Company are in support of legislation, in particular Bill 9-34, that will discourage or prolong the onset of smoking, the use of tobacco-related products, and of measures that protect our youth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for that testimony. Ms. Pradali.
Good evening, Speaker and Senators of the 34th Guam Legislature. I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm just going to read some of my testimony. My name is Renata Badalio, and I work at the Guam Cancer Registry, which is based at the University of Guam, who are also an entity of public health. And some of the statistics I have been read before. We are part of the Guam Cancer Coalition. So Sizu Usmasi for requesting input on Bill 934 from the Guam Cancer Registry. I'm a certified tumor registrar and supervisor of GCR, Guam Cancer Registry, a longtime member of the Guam Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition. GCR fully supports the coalition's backing of Bill 9-34 relative to clarifying the definition of electronic cigarettes and raising the minimum age of legal access to tobacco products and electronic cigarettes to 21 years. GCR's mission is to reduce the number of cancer cases and cancer-related deaths on Guam through the collection of quality cancer data for Guam residents. Our data has consistently shown that cancer incidence and mortality continue to increase through the years, and lung cancer remains the primary culprit, as it is nationwide and worldwide. From 2008 to 2012, lung cancer accounted for 15% of new cancer cases in Guam during that period, and 1/3 of all cancer deaths also during that period. A preliminary analysis of Guam cancer data from 2009 to 2013 shows that these trends continue. Lung cancer incidence and mortality rates among both men and women in Guam have increased, with males again carrying the biggest burden by far, although women also carry a large burden. Two more alarming trends we've seen from GCR data is Guam residents are diagnosed with many types of cancer at younger ages than in the U.S., and many residents are diagnosed at later stages of the disease, both lung cancer and other cancers, which decreases survival rates and increases overall medical costs. This bill is important because national data shows that about 95% of adult smokers started smoking tobacco before they turned 21, and those who started smoking by age 18 were almost twice as likely to become lifetime smokers compared to those who started after they turned 21. You've heard this on Guam. 2 out of 3 current adult smokers started before the age of 18. As of 2015, Guam maintains the highest prevalence rate of high school youth who are current smokers, with 17.6%, while also having the highest smoking rate among adults of all the U.S. states and territories at 27.4%. I'll skip the Institute of Medicine. That's been said a few times, but again, that's very strong evidence-based research supporting raising the minimum age of legal access to tobacco products. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, states that smoking can cause cancer almost anywhere in your body. A lot of people don't realize that. They just think smoking, lung cancer. But no, smoking can cause cancer anywhere in your body, and it's related to most of our 5 highest cancers, in Guam. And while treatments are improving for lung cancer, it still kills more people than any other cancer by far. The National Institute on Drug Abuse has stated that while e-cigarettes are often promoted as a safer alternative to traditional cigarettes, little is known about their long-term health effects, since it's still a fairly new phenomenon. There hasn't been time to do that long-term research. A lot of times little is known about the chemicals that are in the e-cigarettes also, but it's known that most of the e-cigarettes, if not all, definitely most, do contain nicotine with flavorings that appeal to many youth and mask the dangers of nicotine consumption, which may lead to addiction. So again, Bill 934 will make it harder for young adults and adolescents alike to access and become addicted to cigarettes and other tobacco products. As has been said before, this legislation is part of a comprehensive strategy to reduce youth consumption of tobacco and prevent a lifelong addiction. I have several, on a personal note, I have several people very close to me with stage 4 lung cancer, recently died of stage 4 lung cancer. Some associated with smoking, some not. Some Mets, because lung is one of the frequent sites for metastatic cancers, and it's just all cancers are horrible, and including lung cancer is just a horrible disease. Luckily, there are treatments are getting better. All I do all day long in my job, besides the administrative stuff, is read cases of cancer cases, one after the other. It's almost like PTSD, feeling all the pain that these people go through. But I'm so happy of the people that do come out on the other side and overcome the cancer. So anyway, Bill 934 is critical in preventing the harmful effects of smoking in our community. We commend you for making the right choice for our people, and we encourage your colleagues to do the same. Please act now and pass Bill 934. And can I just say one thing to Senator Espodan? I was thinking when you're asking that question, because I too, I'm a great, I'm not one to want too many restrictions, on individual liberties and this and that, and how do we decide, what to, at what age, this and that. And, the community, we are a democracy, and democracy is a community of laws. We're a nation of laws, and who decides the laws are its citizens, are the lawmakers that represent its citizens. So society is always changing. At one point in time, opiates were legal. Now they're illegal. Marijuana is, one time is illegal, then it's legal. In some places legal. So it's a change, times change. And so what the community decides, it's really for the community to decide on how much, on what they want to be legal and illegal, and at what age. So that's the only input I can give for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any senators wish to ask a question or make a comment? Vice Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question for Ms. Berdali. The cancer statistics that you show lung cancer remains the highest cancer on Guam, I guess, the primary culprit you call it. So
yes,
the number one cancer that you find on Guam.
Yes. Statistics are funny because you always have to talk about a time period.
Okay, so 2008 to 2012.
Right, but in the long run, we have data that goes back to 1998 and actually further back. So if you look at all that data, lung cancer is primary, is number one cancer in both incidents. The number of cases and mortality, the number of deaths.
Okay. Do you have any statistics that link patient use, or that like the statistics that show which ones of those were smokers or not smokers?
We collect that data if we can. Each case, we abstract cases, each cancer case, and it may be based on just one pathology report, which has very little data except for the diagnosis, or it may be based on, papers this thick that has the whole social history and everything. So we do collect that data when we can. Unfortunately, a lot of times we don't have that data reported to us. But when it's reported to us, or when we go out and actively collect it, we definitely collect that data.
So you would say it's incomplete data right now. So your data that would link smoking with the lung cancer rate would probably be lower, maybe, than what you, I don't know, I'm guessing.
Yes, we've never done that analysis because we know it's incomplete.
I see.
But nationally, the studies have been done that link smoking to.
The cancer registry doesn't require a report on smoking or not smoking right now? You're getting your cancer registry data From
how
the
that-
clinics.
Right. So how that is reported doesn't require them to report whether they were smoking or not smoking.
We do, let's see, we do ask them to report if they have the information. Different clinics have, they usually have demographic form and they ask for different, different information. They don't, for example, the hospital, GMH asks about smoking, about alcohol. Then again, sometimes people fill out those forms and they're incomplete.
Yes.
So you have that problem. But yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was a standard form that they were submitting to you that you had asked for them, that all reporters fill out, whether they are indicating whether they were smokers or not smokers. But okay, I just wanted to check that. Thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. I really very much appreciated the Stay Well testimony. I think it's important to hear from the health insurance companies, and I'm glad that you did that analysis. That's very, very helpful for us. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senators.
May I just thank Renata for, just for full disclosure, Renata and I were classmates ever since we were kids. And she was always the top in the class. So I always have to at least, give her definitely some good deference in some of the things that she says. But more than that, no, I just want to make it clear that I'm not against the policy. It's just that it goes against something totally unrelated, which addresses a bigger issue. And that's, again, and I've stated it before, the ability of a legal adult to make a decision, however irresponsible it may be, on his own behalf, on a product. And that's kind of like the only concern I have when it comes to that. And you're correct, right, that laws do change. What was legal before is now illegal. What was illegal before probably is now illegal, and things do flow, and it is at the will of the community. But in the bigger sense, and again, I support everything that everybody here has done and is doing on behalf of the health of this island. And yes, the nurses associations, the medical associations, and whatnot definitely have to protect the health of this island. My job is different, right? My job is to perhaps rise to a different level to understand the policies and how they intermingle with each other. Because, like I said, one of the concerns that I do have is if we go down this road, in which we probably will, right, how much further does it extend out to other products? What are the limitations we will place on people to buy perfectly legal products on behalf of their own health? Do they or do they not have a decision in this? And that's where I'm kind of like have been coming from. Not that I'm against the policy that this bill is proposing, but there's an implication on the ability of a legal adult to make a decision on his own behalf. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sorry, Mr. Testimony, Ms. Again, the bathroom was locked and I need to use it. So I just wanted to reiterate, so monthly medical expense for a 65-year-old cancer patient, $40,079 per month, when in stark contrast to medical care costs for non-smoking patients is about $9,466 annually.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so $40,000 a month versus $10,000 a year.
Yes, that's correct. You also need to factor in that they are also taking maintenance medications that aren't necessarily directly related to their cancers. My grandfather, who is a non-smoker, he has chronic diseases, and I sit with him and I help him refill his medications, and just 2 pills alone is $200 for just 2, and he needs 2 a day to survive or to live.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a non-smoker medication, and it doesn't even go together with the cost of cancer medication.
I see. So,
Yeah.
but pharmaceutical costs aren't covered in this. So this is just hospitalizations, consultations, procedures, tests,
Yes,
and other things.
It includes cancer medications,
Okay.
and then the 40,000 also includes the secondary disorders that are also associated with smoking.
Super helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry. Can I just make a brief comment from someone from the back? Pass me up just this comment that it would be good to know how much of the lung cancers were related to smoking, and we also need to remember that a lot of lung cancers are due to secondhand smoke. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you, and we'll get to the next panel. Linda Flynn. Ken Leon Guerrero. President Dr. Robert Underwood. Dr. Joel. There's only three. Okay. Dr. Underwood, Mr. President.
Hafaday, good afternoon, good evening. It's evening now already. Okay, well, Mr. Speaker and members of the committee, on behalf of the University of Guam community, I'm writing to support, here to testify in support of Bill 934, an act to amend relative to clarifying the definition of e-cigarettes and raising the minimum age of, raising the minimum wage, that's not a bad idea either, of legal access to tobacco products. But I can't speak on behalf of the university on that one. You know, as a lifelong educator and former congressional rep for Guam, in which I did a lot of work in anti-tobacco coalition in my various memberships on different caucuses, and as UOG's president, it is my experience that the best decisions are supported by information that is data-driven, fact-based, and vetted through research using the scientific method. Therefore, all of the testimony that has been presented today, including the very compelling 21 points raised by Dr. David and the financial data presented by others, clearly supports the passage of 934 in consideration of the best interests of Guam's youth and people. For all the reasons identified, including Guam's prominence as a leader in tobacco usage, which is a very dispiriting statistic, and also the fact that there is something in the developmental phase of young people that seems to heighten their senses when they're 18, but it also heightens their potential for addiction. And so there's all those factors that are at work as well. And so in keeping with that, the University of Guam stand in support of this legislation. We've tried various techniques to ban tobacco usage from campus. Sometimes not with a great deal of success, admittedly, but we've made the effort, and we think that it's a long kind of cultural change, and certainly over the past 10 years, the incidence of tobacco use at the university campus has gone down dramatically. As an educator, it's also important to make the point that education is the best tool that we have to change behavior. But we not only need to pass along data, we need educational programs that are both effective and relevant. This is very easy to say, but admittedly very difficult to carry out. Anti-campaigns of whatever nature frequently have exactly the opposite effect with young people. Nevertheless, I urge all educational institutions to introduce a tobacco and e-cigarette curriculum where appropriate, and that all civic organizations, churches, families, and businesses support these efforts. Thank you for the opportunity for UOG to testify on this serious matter. As always, UOG and its resources are available to you and your colleagues in providing education and research relevant to our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Dr. Rubio? Either one.
Senators, people of Guam, Buenas tardes has turned into Buenas noches, so I won't take up much of your time. I'm here for two reasons. First is to represent the Guam Medical Society, which is the oldest healthcare professional organization on Guam, and whose ranks include physicians, nurses, and other healthcare professionals that took care of your grandparents, your parents, and probably yourselves. Plainly and simply, as a healthcare organization, we support the passage of Bill 9-34 because it's for the health of people on Guam. So thank you. That's my first point. My second point is as an individual practitioner. I've been a physician since 1989 and a physician on Guam since 1998. And so I've seen a lot. Okay. This afternoon I had quite a surreal experience, and let me try to put a human face on the suffering imposed by lung cancer. Okay. At around lunchtime at GMH, I had the privilege of standing in the back of the chapel witnessing a wedding between one of the inpatients and her husband. The bride was wheeled to the wedding chapel in a wheelchair with oxygen connected to her. Multiple intravenous fluids running into her, including her food. She was too weak to even open her mouth to take in food or even chew food, so she had to be fed through an intravenous infusion. Okay. And I was standing in the back of the chapel, and it was my privilege to be there because I was involved in her care. She's also diabetic, so her doctor referred her to me for sugar control. Okay, but let me tell you the background. At age 15, she started smoking. By age 18, it had gone up to 3 packs a day. Multiple attempts to quit, unsuccessful. Finally quit last year because of a huge lung cancer, which has since spread to her skull bone. Now, when you bang your shin against the table, that's painful, right? Imagine a tumor growing and pulsing. That's incredible pain that this lady was experiencing, okay? It's too late for her now to be protected by Bill 9-34, but I urge you, please protect the future of Guam by passing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you both. We have one more panel left. Oh, wait, does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you. DLS, August Fest. Miss Ariola? And Harold Cruz.
Good evening, Senators. When I woke up today, I had no idea I'd be here testifying. I had no intention of testifying. I was actually here to meet another senator that told me they would be here to have a discussion about something else later on, but I figured since I'm here, and if I'm allowed to, put my 2 cents worth in. All right. I got here when the first panel of medical, well, there was a medical expert, and I think a guy that represented the tobacco people, that panel, and I was just talking to the doctor that sat here, and we had a discussion about the similar arguments being made as far as studies on brain development, or let's say the consequences of negative brain development are not so much, being inhibited or changed. And I noticed the same arguments are made for cannabis, which are two separate things. And cannabis has patents that says it's a neuroprotective agent for brain development, or for brains in general. But what I wanted to stress was, just in that part of it, I've tried to reach out to people who have done studies on that, not on the tobacco part, but the cannabis part, and they can't answer the question or justify how they will be able to factor out any changes in the brain due to alcohol use or abuse. And the doctor that was sitting here just concurred, there's no way you can. That's just one point, but the lady at the end testified that there would be no negative consequence to the government, no negative consequence to any businesses, because the sales are so very, very low. Well, if the sales are so very, very low, why do we need a bill for such a low market? I'm a smoker. I know that smoking is very, very bad for you. My father died when I was 7 years old. I have a niece that died a few years back. Not disputing that smoking is a nasty habit, is bad for anybody. Not disputing that whatsoever. But I do got to kind of side with Senator Espadon is, well, wait a minute, 18 to 21. These people are allowed to drive a car. They're allowed to go fight in war and get killed. They're allowed to get married. That has long-term negative consequences. But they're not allowed to, make the wrong decisions or enjoy the freedoms. Now, I'd have to stretch that out to alcohol too, which I don't drink. Not since 2000, not a drop. That is a very, very dangerous product. Very dangerous. But the thing is, I wouldn't limit somebody that can go fight in a war. If he committed a crime, be charged as an adult. They're even charging people that are under 18 as adults for, depending on their crime and their social status. My only argument against it is the civil liberties part. Mr. Espadon said, it's not a constitutional issue. Well, I don't know. I'm not so positive. Like I said, I'm a smoker, but I wish I wasn't. My father died, my niece died, but it's a freedom thing. I don't drink and haven't in 17 years, but I wouldn't want to legislate anybody being able to enjoy or make the mistakes that they can. We're only talking 2 or 3 years. If there's such a high prevalence in the schools of people that are smoking, but yet they also say, well, there's not that much of a market that's going to affect the government's taxes on it or any businesses, you can't have your data be both ways. That's all I got to say. I'm whether it's, like I said, I'm not supporting smoking at all, but I am a person that supports civil liberties. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, August. Ms. Ariola? Oh.
She's going to yield to me because hers is longer. Good evening, Honorable Speaker and members of the 34th Guam Legislature. I'm here as a personal capacity. There was testimony that was submitted, and I'd like to read it. It's written by a 14-year-old, and her name is Isabella Asuncion Cruz. And she's my daughter, and I have a difficult time trying to convince her that when she turns 18 years old, that she's not going to be able to make certain choices as an adult. So she writes, Hafaday, Honorable Speaker and Senators. My name is Isabella Asuncion Cruz. I'm 14 years old for the village of Manila. I'm submitting my letter against raising the smoking age to 21. At the age of 14, I understand and know the medical effects of tobacco use, smoking cigarettes. I feel that like most of my peers, we understand what tobacco can do to our bodies. What I don't understand is why do you want to regulate and tell me what I can and cannot do when I turn 18 years old? What I can and cannot do when I'm 19 and 20 years old? Do you remember when you all looked forward to turning 18 years old? The right to consume alcohol and go to the bar and the decision to smoke? Now you want to take that right and decision away from me. When I turn 18, I have the right to vote for our governor. I also have the right to vote for senators, the right to vote for a school board, and the right to vote for Public Utilities Commission. You might as well take that right away from me and everyone else and raise the adult age on Guam to 21. This is just so disheartening. I offer this. Raise the tobacco tax so it makes it even more expensive for people to buy tobacco, and in doing so, put that money in a reserve account for my future college fund. Stop making laws that dictates what an adult who is 18 years old can and cannot do. Si tu masi para itempon mo. Like I said, I have a difficult time, and I debated with my daughter over the past couple of days, trying to convince a 14-year-old that, there's some times that the government does things that is maybe not popular. So as a father, I had to come out and read it to the public and to everyone on the panel. Now my position is, this is Harold Cruz's position, and I think Ms. Castro left because she visited Senator Will Castro's office, and you all know I'm the chief of staff for Senator Will Castro, but I'm here as a father. I personally love the bill. I think it's going to do a lot of things in terms of maybe cutting the addiction down in middle school and high school, because I think that's the age that we're probably focusing on the younger kids that it deeply affects. So in terms of my position, Mr. Speaker, it's a good bill. Now you got to help me convince my daughter that when she turns 18 years old, if this legislation is to pass, why did we take her right away? Why did we take her right away? And she makes a good point. She makes a good point because at 18, and Senator Espadon mentioned earlier, we just reduced the voting age to 17, correct? So at 18, she's able to decide who can 15 senators, which is very, very important. Who can she vote for governor, which is a very, very important decision. So please help me, and you don't have to say anything now. So I can sit down with my 14-year-old daughter and convince her. Why did we take the rights away? And then she might even ask, Dad, what did you do to preserve my right when I turn 18? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and please thank your daughter for us. Ms. Ayala.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Senators, for giving me this opportunity to provide testimony on Bill 934 relative to clarifying the definition of electronic cigarettes and raising the minimum age of 21 for legal access to tobacco products. In my capacity as Sanctuary's Executive Director, as you folks may know, Sanctuary is a youth organization that treats at-risk kids between the ages of 12 to 18, and we are very, very focused in prevention of substance abuse. I am alarmed in my last 16 months as the Executive Director of Sanctuary of the increasing number of youth that come through our doors because of addiction to substance abuse, inclusive of tobacco products and electronic cigarettes. The latter has clearly become a hot commodity for youth in recent years, of which I am certain is largely attributed to the unfounded claims that vaping is a safe substitute to traditional cigarettes. In an effort to recover from their addiction, these youth seek haven in our Saginaw residential treatment facility and work closely alongside our clinical team in accordance with their individualized treatment plan. As Saginaw is the only existing drug and alcohol residential treatment facility for youth on island and in the Micronesia region, and there is currently a waiting list for clients to be served. These clients are children under 12 to 18. The need to provide more services for youth with addictions is very, very apparent. This is further substantiated by the fact that there is a dire shortage of certified substance abuse counselors island-wide. At present, our island today is in need of 70+ substance abuse counselors, of which Guam only has 22. The need is far greater than the current availability of resources. In an effort to address this need, the Tobacco Prevention and Control Program of the Department of Public Health and Social Services called upon community partners to partake in the Tobacco Cessation Trainer of Trainer courses. Sanctuary aligned themselves in this endeavor, resulting in 2 of my staff becoming trained and certified to teach the courses themselves. Sanctuary today, with the help and partnership with Guam Department of Education, principals in schools, offer tobacco cessation for youth starting this past January. Principals and administrators are 100% supportive and are ready to begin and have begun referring youth under the age of 18 caught smoking or in use of tobacco to Sanctuary's TC classes as part of the students' disciplinary and treatment plan. As an advocate for youth living a healthy and productive life, I highly support both an age increase and suggest a tax increase in the legal access to tobacco products and electronic cigarettes. Based on a comprehensive review of evidence, the Surgeon General has called raising prices on cigarettes, quote, one of the most effective tobacco control interventions, because increasing prices is proven to reduce smoking, especially among our youth. The potential impact is significant. According to a 2015 report from the National Academy of Medicine, if the minimum age were increased to 21 years of age, tobacco use would decrease by 12% by the time today's teenagers were adults, and smoking-related deaths will decrease by 10%. Smoking will be reduced by 25% for 15 to 17-year-olds and 15% for 18 and 20-year-olds. Nationwide, it will prevent 223,000 deaths among people born between 2000 and 2019, including 50,000 fewer dying from lung cancer, the nation and Guam's leading cancer killer. The taxes, and I really love the fact that Harold's daughter, I mean, she's got it because she practically wrote my testimony, in part. The taxes collected on tobacco products, if the suggestion is taken into consideration about the increase of cigarettes, the taxes collected on tobacco products should be earmarked for more youth prevention programs, and at the very least, for funding for more substance abuse counselors that is greatly needed in our island. Additionally, it should be stated that tobacco use in teenagers and young adults can cause both immediate and long-term harm. Adolescent tobacco use is concerning because adolescents are still growing and their brains are still developing, as mentioned earlier in several testimonies. For these reasons, I am in support of Bill number 934. I believe that this is an important initiative that will help discourage youth from becoming addicted to substance abuse. Thank you for your efforts in safeguarding the health of our youth and your commitment to building a healthier Guam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ariola. Any other senators wish to ask any questions of Mr. Cruz or anybody? If not, I'd like to thank all of you for coming down this afternoon. All of you that testified and all of you that came to show your support for those that were testifying. And we'll try to move this as soon as possible. I really appreciate all the testimony, and with that, we will adjourn this hearing.